It's just a great spot that's very heavily used. The Land Trust has done a lot of work to improve it. When this was first here, it was pretty overgrown, being abandoned cranberry bogs. It's in an area that hadn't seen a lot of open space. We're challenged to find open space in Centerville, Osterville, Hyannis area. So we thought that this one, with its unique resources, the stream running through, and the former bogs, that it would be a great spot to highlight. The Community Preservation Act was adopted in 2006 by the Town of Barnstable, the voters, and it was a continuation of the Land Bank program, which had been started previously also by vote of the folks. Land Bank is a term that's used to set aside land, really. That's what it's talking about. Purchasing land for a variety of uses, recreation or open space, or perhaps even habitat protection or water supply protection. So it really just, the effort there was to put land aside for those purposes. The Community Preservation Act was a continuation of that program, but also included the ability to buy land specifically for recreation and ball fields, for community housing, and those types of programs, as well as historic preservation. Well, we can work in a number of ways. We can buy directly from a landowner, and we've done that in many cases. A lot of folks, when the building boom was going on, had family lands that they really wanted to see preserved, but they needed to take some income from that property, so we've bought land directly. We've bought land with the water districts to protect certain wellheads, and that requires negotiating with them back and forth. And we've also worked extensively with the Land Trust, Barnstable Land Trust, Orinda Wildlife Trust, those types of groups, where they bring their skills and partnerships to it, as well as additional funding many times, because they're much more adept at obtaining grant funds than the town is. So the partnerships change with every project. It really, oftentimes we have to sit down and say, okay, how are we going to handle this one?
Land trusts, like Barnstable Land Trust, are generally private, nonprofit organizations that work to conserve land for open space, for habitat, to protect water quality, and to provide trails and places for people to go outside. And generally they're collaborative organizations. They work with towns and other partner nonprofits to help preserve our special places. Barnstable Land Trust has been around since 1983. It was founded during a real big development boom on Cape Cod in the 80s, when it looked like all of the remaining open spaces were going to become housing or commercial development. And a group of founders got together and said, how can we protect the places that make Cape Cod special and make Barnstable special? And so the town and the new nonprofit organization, which was totally volunteer at that point, Barnstable Land Trust, it was called Barnstable Conservation Foundation back then, started working and helping to develop tools like the Land Bank, which is a state program for towns to conserve land, a state public funding source, and then Community Preservation Act funding following that. And together, the town and Barnstable Land Trust and some other nonprofit organizations helped conserve about a quarter of the land area of the town of Barnstable. I think there's mostly opportunities to working with the municipality I know best, which is the town of Barnstable, and we have worked with them in a number of ways. So often, because a land trust can be more flexible and act more quickly, we can negotiate for an agreement with a landowner and bring that property to the town and ask if they are interested in helping with the conservation of the property. And sometimes the town will say, yes, this is important for water quality protection, so the town would like to own it. And then Barnstable Land Trust will hold what's called a conservation restriction on it, which protects it forever. Sometimes the roles are reversed. The town will hold the conservation restriction, Barnstable Land Trust will own it. And we have a very strong working relationship with the town and a lot of different staff in the different departments. Another way we work together is leveraging funding. So the town has this wonderful pot of money called the Community Preservation Act funding, which is able to support open space projects, among other things. And so if Barnstable Land Trust proposes a project to the CPA, then we can come and say, your $150,000, for example, will leverage an $80,000 grant from the state and another $100,000 in private money that we will raise from private donors. So it really leverages a lot more funding and gives us a lot more capacity to protect land.
The Community Preservation Act funding comes from a 3% surcharge on everyone's property tax. So after you get your bill, you'll see a 3% charge based on your value of your home, and that fund is added to the Community Preservation Fund every year. This was authorized by the state, and municipalities can opt into that program. Currently, there are 188 communities in the state that are in the Community Preservation Program, and Barnstable is one of the leaders in that program. You have to file your Community Preservation Act report every year, and you have certain criteria for the group that requires you to have an annual meeting of the committee to open it to the public to take input, and you also have to have a plan of how you're going to expend the funds going forward for the coming year. And the state, through the legislature, every year decides on a matching award for the entire program and all communities involved. Last year, I believe it was 33% match, and that's funded through the transfer fees at the Registry of Deeds. So depending on how the sales go for the year, they will match that fund. It's not permanent, and it's still up to the legislature to decide how often and how much they'll award to the individual towns. Barnstable is the only town that remains and has a rolling application period. We're not constrained by like several towns are, with town meeting twice a year. So we have an application system that's ongoing, and that allows us to take our projects on the short notice. If the land trust comes in with something that needs to be addressed right away because of a grant deadline or an anxious seller, we can react much more quickly than if we had to wait for town meeting. But we also work with town departments, the Department of Public Works and recreation departments, to bring their projects into us on a timely manner, and we work with them in the capital improvement program, so other matching funds are coming forward through that program. And we also, as I mentioned earlier, have inquiries from private citizens.
Yeah, there's lots of opportunities. I mean, first of all, just helping people understand that they can donate their land or sell their land to a land trust, or protect it with a conservation restriction, which basically extinguishes the development rights on it. So it will never be developed. And I guess that's one thing I would add about what land trusts do is they protect land forever. So even when the land trust is gone, the land will be open space in perpetuity. So opportunities just in terms of having more people understand what a land trust does and how we can help people conserve their land. There's also opportunities to protect land that people don't think of necessarily as at risk, like golf courses and ball fields and maybe campgrounds that are privately owned or publicly owned but aren't protected and are really, really important community assets. So that's a really, really important opportunity for us to be a little more aware of.
The benefits really are manyfold. As I mentioned earlier, water supply protection is a principal one now. We've all seen the need for clean water and clean drinking water, and through the Community Preservation Act, we can fund the acquisition of properties, or we can hold conservation restrictions for a property that might be bought by a water district. That's a key component. Other things are just the preservation of open space is a key for any community, to have places where people can recreate, walking trails, places where people can go to just enjoy nature. Very, very important. And it's those kinds of things that have become more appreciated in current times. We've all seen a huge increase in the use of land since we've had our COVID problems. So having these open spaces has been very critical to giving people places to recreate.
Well, we are a very small organization. We're a member organization, and we have a very big mission, which is to protect the remaining open spaces and to steward the land that we have. Some people think that land conservation is just about acquiring land, but there's a huge amount of work that follows on that, which is taking care of the land. And so we have a whole land steward volunteer group and staff whose sole job it is to maintain our properties, whether they are trails like here or roadways that need cleanup. It's a full-time job for a lot of people, so that's one big challenge, and we're always looking for volunteers to help us do that. AmeriCorps Cape Cod is a fantastic, strong organization and has always partnered with Barnstable Land Trust and other land trusts on Cape Cod. We do projects with them several times a year where they'll bring 10 or 15 people to a site like this and help us clear out invasives like gray willow. We've had major projects here clearing out the ditches. We have people mowing. This has to be mowed very regularly to keep the trails nice and to keep the invasives back.
We've done a lot of work in Barnstable, and some of the people may not realize, but there were some really interesting parcels. For example, we purchased the former Chili's property at the Rotary in Hyannis. We also purchased the land for Pleasant Street Park, a little pocket park that connects with the Maritime Museum to Pleasant Street. Beautiful little project that really came together there. And we've done some sort of bigger projects. We completed the land acquisition at the Santur Pond Preserve, which is a 200-acre project that was done previously with the land bank, but we were able to infill with that. We've just been able to do a lot of those types of acquisitions, but we've also funded ball field restorations like the Harbor Hawks Field in Hyannis and Lombard softball field. And we're just starting on some new playground restorations at Barnstable Hollow and the Centerville Recreation Building playground. So we have a number of projects that we've completed and looking forward to even more in the future.
This is a hidden treasure that not a lot of people know about. So it's nice to be able to show people something they might not know about. The places that we've protected together over time, Sandy Neck, Eagle Pond, Lowell Park, Crocker Neck, West Barnstable Conservation Area, folks know about those, but there's a lot of places which are all in our trail guide now that people don't know about and are just lovely spots, especially if you're in the neighborhood, to come and take a walk.
Well, people can get involved if they have a project they'd like to recommend, or if they'd like to see some particular ball field, for example, improved, or maybe a new ball field created somewhere, or participate in a community housing project.
I think that it's helpful for folks to know that everyone can be part of the solution to some of our big pressing problems in our town, whether it's water quality or loss of open space. And the way people can help and be part of the solution is to support Barnstable Land Trust, to volunteer with us, to consider what lands are most important to them and bring them to our attention. Let us know what might need to be protected next.